The coffee tastes like betrayal this morning. Same machine, same dark roast blend, but somehow it's bitter in ways that have nothing to do with caffeine. I sit at my desk, staring at the email that arrived at 7:43 a.m. Project Meridian timeline adjustment effective immediately. The subject line might as well read your 6 months down the drain, love, management. My fingers hover over the keyboard. Delete, draft, delete again. 2 hours of careful wording later, I walk to his corner office. Come in, Ariana. Gerald doesn't look up from his monitor. His tie is already askew at 9 a.m., a sure sign he's been here since dawn, probably crafting more reassignment emails. About Project Meridian, I begin. We need faster execution. He finally meets my eyes. Market conditions changed overnight. The timeline moved up by 3 weeks. I nod slowly. Professional. Measured. Of course. Who's taking over? Brendan's team. They have more bandwidth right now. Brendan. The same Brendan who needed me to explain pivot tables last quarter. The same Brendan who scheduled meetings during lunch and wondered why attendance was low. I understand, I say. And I do understand. I understand that 6 months of market research, stakeholder interviews, and prototype development just became someone else's career milestone. I understand that my weekend coding sessions and late-night strategy refinements are now Brendan's foundation for success. Great team player attitude, Ariana. This is why we value you. I smile. It's the kind of smile that doesn't reach anywhere near my eyes, but Gerald isn't looking anyway. He's already back to his screen, fingers flying across the keyboard, probably reassigning someone else's life's work. Anything else? I ask. Actually, yes. Can you prepare a comprehensive handover document? Brendan will need context on your approach. By when? End of day would be ideal. Of course it would. I walk back to my cubicle. The open floor plan means everyone can see everything, but nobody makes eye contact. Office politics have trained us all to develop selective blindness. My computer screen still shows my project timeline. Color-coded phases stretching across 12 weeks, each milestone carefully calculated based on resource availability and market research depth. Now it's compressed into 9 weeks for someone who doesn't know the difference between correlation and causation. The handover document grows longer as the day progresses. 47 pages of methodology, insights, potential pitfalls, and recommended approaches. I include everything except the obvious, that this timeline is impossible without cutting critical corners. But I don't write that part down. At 6 p.m., I send the email. Comprehensive handover attached, as requested. Then I go home and wait. The first sign appears on Tuesday morning. Brendan hovering near my desk with a printed copy of my handover doc, yellow highlighter marks bleeding through the pages. Quick question about the vendor assessment criteria, he says. Which section? All of them, really. Your rationale seems overly complex. I explain the market dynamics that shaped those criteria. The regulatory requirements. The integration challenges with existing systems. He nods like he understands, but his eyes glaze over during the technical details. Wednesday brings another visit. Then Thursday. By Friday, he's practically camping next to my cubicle. Maybe we should schedule a proper knowledge transfer session, he suggests. I thought the document covered everything. It does, but context helps, you know? Context. Right. Monday morning, Gerald sends another email. Project Meridian, status update meeting, 2 p.m. today. The conference room smells like stale bagels and desperation. Gerald sits at the head of the table, laptop open, fingers drumming against the fake wood surface. Brendan arrives 3 minutes late, shuffling papers and mumbling apologies. Let's dive right in, Gerald says. Brendan, walk us through your progress. Brendan clears his throat. Well, we've been reviewing Ariana's documentation. Reviewing? Yes, there's quite a bit to unpack. The methodology is thorough. Gerald's expression shifts. Subtle, but I catch it. The slight tightening around his eyes. How thorough? 6-month thorough. Maybe more. There are dependencies we hadn't accounted for. The drumming stops. What kind of dependencies? Brendan glances at me, then back at Gerald. Regulatory approval processes. Vendor certification timelines. Integration testing phases that can't be parallelized. Can't you streamline them? Not without significant risk. The silence stretches long enough for me to count 17 ceiling tiles. Gerald's voice, when it comes, carries a different weight. What's the revised timeline? 14 weeks. Minimum. That's longer than the original timeline. Yes. Tuesday passes quietly. No hovering. No urgent questions about vendor assessments. Wednesday, I notice Brendan's desk is cleaner than usual. Fewer scattered papers. More organized stacks. Thursday brings the inevitable. Gerald storms past my cubicle at 2:47 p.m., face flushed, tie completely crooked now. His office door slams hard enough to rattle the glass partition. 5 minutes later, his voice carries across the open floor plan. Why didn't anyone meet the deadline? This was supposed to be faster execution. The irony tastes sweeter than the morning coffee. I keep typing. Professional productivity software requires professional focus, regardless of the chaos erupting 30 feet away. Ariana. Gerald appears beside my desk. His breathing is slightly elevated. Can you help me understand what happened? I look up from my screen. Meet his eyes. Hold the moment. Which part would you like me to explain? The timeline. Brendan says it's impossible. It was always impossible. The original 12-week timeline assumed certain preparatory work phases and market validation steps. Compressing it to 9 weeks meant eliminating critical path elements. Why didn't you mention this during our conversation? You said you needed faster execution. I agreed that faster would be beneficial. He stares at me for a long moment. That's not the same as saying it was achievable. You didn't ask if it was achievable. You stated what you needed. The distinction hangs in the air between us. Gerald runs his hand through his hair. What would you recommend now? Return to the original timeline with the original methodology. The market research and validation phases weren't arbitrary bureaucracy. They were risk mitigation. And the market conditions that changed overnight? Still there. Still requiring the same careful analysis they required 6 months ago. He nods slowly. The kind of nod that acknowledges uncomfortable truths. Can you take the project back? I pretend to consider this. Let the pause build. Feel the weight of 6 days of watching someone else struggle with my work. Of course, I say finally. Though we've lost a week of progress. Right. Yes. Of course. He walks away, shoulders slightly more hunched than when he arrived. I return to my screen, but the cursor just blinks at me. Waiting. The project lands back on my desk with a soft email thud at 4:23 p.m. Project Meridian ownership transfer effective immediately. Different subject line. Same outcome. I open my original project file. The timeline still shows 12 weeks of carefully planned phases. Nothing has changed except the date stamps. Well, almost nothing. Now I have a 47-page document detailing exactly why this timeline matters. Why each phase exists. Why shortcuts lead to failures. The next time someone suggests we need faster execution, I'll have comprehensive documentation proving why faster isn't always better. The coffee tastes normal again tomorrow morning. Same machine, same dark roast, but somehow it carries hints of satisfaction that have everything to do with justice. I settle into my chair and open Project Meridian. 12 weeks of structured progress stretching ahead of me, each milestone exactly where it belongs. My phone buzzes with a text from my colleague Sophie. Heard you got your project back. Everything okay? I type back, better than okay. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting people hang themselves with their own unrealistic expectations. That's very zen of you. Zen nothing. That's just good project management. She sends back a laughing emoji. I smile and return to my timeline. Week 1, Phase 1, Step 1. Everything in its proper sequence. Gerald hasn't made eye contact since yesterday's conversation. He nods when we pass in the hallway, but there's a new careful distance in his acknowledgements. Brendan seems relieved, honestly. He stops by my desk once to say thanks for the comprehensive handover documentation. Really helped me understand why this stuff matters, he says. Experience is the best teacher, I tell him. Yeah. Expensive teacher, though. Only if you don't learn from it. He laughs, but it's the kind of laugh that acknowledges uncomfortable truths. The real satisfaction isn't in Gerald's embarrassment or Brendan's struggle. It's in the quiet vindication of methodology over panic. Process over pressure. Sometimes the system works exactly the way it's supposed to work. Sometimes giving people exactly what they ask for is the most subversive thing you can do. The project timeline stretches ahead of me, 12 weeks of structured progress. Each phase building on the last. Each milestone earned through careful preparation and realistic planning. It's going to be a good quarter. But success has a peculiar way of attracting attention. 3 weeks into my reclaimed timeline, Vanessa from Corporate Strategy appears at my desk with that particular smile executives wear when they're about to complicate your life. Ariana, right? I've been hearing interesting things about Project Meridian. Interesting. That's never a good adjective in corporate speak. What kind of interesting? The kind that makes senior leadership take notice. She perches on the edge of my desk, invading the carefully maintained bubble of personal workspace. Gerald mentioned you have some unique insights into project timeline management. Gerald. Of course. I follow established project management principles. Nothing particularly unique. Modest. I like that. She doesn't like anything. She's evaluating. Would you be available for a brief chat with the executive team? They're curious about your approach to the Meridian challenges. The request isn't really a request. In Emerald Enterprises hierarchy, curiosity from the executive team translates to mandatory participation. When? This afternoon. 3 o'clock. Conference room B. She glides away, leaving behind the faint scent of expensive perfume and political ambition. Conference room B is the serious one. Real wood table, leather chairs, and a view of the city that reminds you exactly how small your cubicle existence really is. I arrive at 2:58 p.m. Punctuality is professionalism. The executive team is already seated, Vanessa, Chief Operations Officer Patricia Wong, and someone I don't recognize wearing a suit that costs more than my monthly rent. Ariana, thanks for joining us. Patricia's voice carries the kind of authority that comes from surviving 3 corporate restructures. This is Martin Reeves from the Board of Directors. Martin. I file the name away with all the other power players I'll probably never see again after today. We understand you successfully navigated some timeline challenges with Project Meridian, Martin says. Successfully navigated. That's one way to describe watching someone else crash and burn with your work. The project is progressing according to the original timeline, yes. Gerald mentioned there were some learning opportunities during the transition process. Learning opportunities. Corporate euphemism for spectacular failure. The compressed timeline proved incompatible with the project's scope and complexity. Incompatible how? I explained the regulatory dependencies, the vendor certification requirements, the integration testing phases that couldn't be rushed without compromising system integrity. They nod in synchronization, 3 heads bobbing like dashboard ornaments. What would you have done differently? Vanessa asks. The loaded question. The trap disguised as professional development. I would have maintained the original timeline from the beginning. But market conditions required acceleration. Market conditions required results. Quality results delivered on time are more valuable than rushed results delivered early but requiring extensive rework. Martin leans forward. Elaborate. The compressed timeline eliminated market validation phases. Without validation, we risk developing solutions for problems that don't actually exist, or solutions that don't meet actual user needs. And the cost of that risk? Complete project failure. Starting over from scratch. Missing market opportunities while competitors who did their homework properly capture market share. Silence settles over the room like expensive carpet. Patricia breaks it first. We're implementing a new project oversight structure. More strategic timeline planning. We'd like you to participate. Participate. Another non-optional request. What kind of participation? Advisory role. Review project proposals from other departments. Provide timeline feasibility analysis. In addition to my current responsibilities? We'd adjust your workload accordingly. Translation: more work, same pay, but with the political protection that comes from executive visibility. I'll need to understand the scope better before committing. Of course. Vanessa will send you the details. The meeting dissolves into pleasantries and scheduling discussions. I smile professionally and take notes in my leather portfolio, the one I bought specifically for meetings where looking competent matters more than being comfortable. Walking back to my cubicle, I notice the shift in office dynamics. Subtle glances, slightly longer pauses in conversations as I pass. Word travels fast in open floor plan environments. Sophie intercepts me near the coffee machine. Executive meeting, huh? News travels fast. Faster than bad coffee and workplace gossip. She pours herself a cup of what definitely qualifies as bad coffee. What did they want? Timeline consultation work. Advisory role. Fancy. More money? Unclear. Probably not. More visibility, though. Definitely. She stirs artificial sweetener into her coffee, creating tiny whirlpools of dissolution. Visibility can be dangerous around here. Tall poppy syndrome. Tall poppy syndrome? The nail that sticks out gets hammered down. Ancient proverb, modern office politics. I consider this while watching the artificial sweetener disappear completely into the dark liquid. Or, I say slowly, sometimes the nail that sticks out is the only one holding the structure together. Philosophical. I like it. She wanders back to her desk, leaving me alone with the coffee machine and the growing realization that my quiet professional existence just became significantly more complicated. The email from Vanessa arrives at 4:47 p.m. Subject line: Strategic Project Advisory Role, Details and Expectations. I open it reluctantly. The scope is larger than expected. Timeline feasibility analysis for all major projects across 3 departments. Weekly status meetings with department heads. Monthly presentations to the executive team. 20% time allocation. On top of Project Meridian. On top of my regular responsibilities. But the final paragraph catches my attention. This role represents significant career development opportunity and potential pathway to senior project management positions. Pathway to senior management. The golden carrot that keeps corporate employees running on their wheels. I close the email without responding and return to Project Meridian. Week 4, Phase 2, proceeding exactly according to schedule. My computer screen reflects my face back at me in the black margins around the project timeline. I look tired. When did I start looking tired? The vendor certification phase requires careful coordination with external partners. I spend the next morning crafting emails that balance urgency with politeness, authority with collaboration. At 11:23 a.m., my phone rings. Unknown internal extension. Ariana Davis. Hi, this is Craig from engineering. I heard you might be doing timeline analysis for cross-department projects? Word travels faster than I expected. That's still being finalized. Right, but when it is finalized, could you look at our database migration timeline? Gerald said we need to compress it by 6 weeks, but that seems impossible? I was going to say ambitious. Same thing, usually. Send me the details when the advisory role is officially confirmed. Will do. Thanks. The call ends, but the pattern is established. By lunch, I've received 4 similar calls from various departments, all dealing with compressed timelines, all sounding desperate. Gerald's timeline compression disease is apparently contagious. I eat my sandwich at my desk while reviewing the database migration preliminary timeline Craig emailed me despite my request to wait for official confirmation. The timeline is indeed impossible. 8 months of work compressed into 10 weeks. They want to migrate 20 years of customer data, upgrade security protocols, and implement new user interfaces simultaneously. It's Project Meridian all over again, but with higher stakes and more moving parts. My phone buzzes with a text from Sophie, lunch in the break room. Office gossip emergency. I abandon my sandwich and follow the summons. Sophie is surrounded by 3 colleagues I recognize but don't really know: Harold from accounting, Rebecca from marketing, and someone new who looks too young to be dealing with corporate politics. Ariana, meet Casey, our new junior analyst. Casey, meet the woman who just became Gerald's timeline reality check. Casey extends a hand with the kind of firm handshake they teach in business school. I heard about Project Meridian. Impressive navigation of office politics. Navigation. Everyone keeps using that word like I was steering a ship instead of just letting someone else crash into the rocks. What's the gossip emergency? I ask. Gerald's been in meetings with department heads all morning, Rebecca says. Word is he's implementing timeline compression across the board. Everything needs to be faster. Based on what? Board pressure. Quarterly targets. The usual panic about market competitiveness. Harold leans forward conspiratorially. I heard Patricia Wong challenged him directly about the Meridian situation. Asked why he reassigned a project manager who was meeting her original timeline. What did he say? Something about learning experiences and strategic realignment. Translation? I fucked up, but I'm too proud to admit it. We sit in silence, processing this information while the microwave hums in the background, heating someone's leftover pasta. So what happens now? Casey asks. Now, I say slowly, we all get to watch Gerald learn the same lesson multiple times until it sticks or until someone higher up decides he's too expensive to keep teaching. And you get to be the one who tells everyone their timelines are impossible, Sophie adds. Lucky me. But as I walk back to my desk, I realize luck might not be the right word. Opportunity, maybe. Dangerous opportunity, but opportunity nonetheless. The afternoon brings 3 more impossible timeline requests, 2 panicked phone calls from project managers who've heard about my new role, and 1 very interesting email from Patricia Wong. Ariana, please prepare a brief presentation on realistic timeline estimation methodologies for next week's leadership meeting. Focus on risk mitigation strategies and long-term cost analysis. Patricia. Brief presentation. Leadership meeting. Risk mitigation. I save Project Meridian and open a new document. Presentation title, The True Cost of Impossible Timelines, a Strategic Analysis. Sometimes the best way to change a system is to give it exactly what it asks for, then document exactly why it fails. 2 hours later, I have 15 slides of charts, graphs, and case studies demonstrating the mathematical relationship between timeline compression and project failure rates. It's going to be a very interesting leadership meeting. The week passes in a blur of timeline analysis, impossible requests, and growing office tension. Gerald avoids eye contact completely now, communicating only through carefully worded emails that someone else probably wrote for him. Thursday afternoon, I present my strategic analysis to the leadership team. The conference room is packed. All department heads, the executive team, and several people I don't recognize wearing suits that suggest they make decisions about other people's careers. I advance through my slides methodically. Statistics on project failure rates. Cost analysis of timeline compression. Case studies from competitors who rushed to market with incomplete solutions. The room grows quieter with each data point. Slide 12 shows a comparison chart, projects completed on original timelines versus projects with compressed timelines. The success rate differential is stark. Questions? I ask as I reach the final slide. Martin Reeves raises his hand. What do you recommend? Return to evidence-based timeline estimation. Accept that market conditions change, but don't sacrifice project integrity for arbitrary speed increases. Focus on delivery quality over delivery dates. And if market conditions require acceleration? Then we prioritize which projects get additional resources rather than compressing all timelines uniformly. Strategic acceleration of high-impact projects, realistic timelines for everything else. Patricia Wong nods slowly. Implementation recommendations? Department-level timeline audits. Realistic resource allocation analysis. Clear criteria for when acceleration is strategically justified versus when it's panic-driven decision-making. The presentation ends with polite applause and several lingering conversations I'm not invited to join. Walking back to my cubicle, I notice the subtle shift in office atmosphere. People make eye contact now. Not acknowledgement. Treat me like someone worth knowing instead of just another cubicle occupant. Power is strange. Sometimes you don't realize you have it until everyone else starts treating you like you do. Gerald's office light is still on at 6 p.m. when I pack up for the day. Through the glass partition, I can see him hunched over his computer, probably crafting another carefully worded email about strategic realignment. Tomorrow, my new advisory role officially begins. Tonight, I'm going home to cook a proper dinner and drink wine that costs more than $15. Sometimes victory tastes like success. Sometimes it tastes like expensive wine and the quiet satisfaction of watching incompetence teach itself lessons. Have you ever watched someone demand the impossible, then act surprised when impossibility delivers exactly what it promised? Sometimes the best response isn't argument or explanation. Sometimes it's just professional agreement, comprehensive documentation, and patient waiting for reality to teach the lessons you couldn't.